Elias Hart was a man who had everything on paper. At 33, he sat at the helm of Hart Industries, a tech empire his grandfather had started from a dusty garage in the 1960s. He drove cars worth more than some people's homes, lived in a penthouse overlooking Manhattan skyline, and dined with celebrities and CEOs alike. But despite all the accolades and wealth, Elias lacked one thing: control over his own inheritance. His grandfather's will was clear: if Elias wasn't married and preparing to be a family man by the end of the fiscal year, the lion's share of the inheritance would go to charity. The stipulation had always been a looming shadow, something distant until now. With only 3 months left, Elias faced a sobering truth: he had built an empire on his own terms, but the final key to securing his future was locked behind a traditional expectation he never valued: marriage and family. He tried dating. Briefly. A parade of beautiful, ambitious women with curated smiles and rehearsed sympathy. But none of them fooled him. They wanted the Hart name, the money, the status, not him. He needed someone unexpected. Someone with no ties, no hidden motives. Then fate or something like it intervened. It was raining, a cold and ruthless Manhattan downpour. Elias was late leaving a board meeting, agitated and pacing through the back entrance of a luxury hotel when he spotted her, a woman sitting on the concrete, soaked to the skin, her arms wrapped protectively around a visibly pregnant belly. Her eyes were closed, face tilted to the sky as if she could absorb warmth from a storm. Something about her stilled him. He should have kept walking. He was not the type to involve himself in strangers' lives, let alone a homeless pregnant woman's. But he paused and then turned back. "Do you need help?" he asked, voice more curious than kind. She blinked up at him, startled. "No one helps people like me." Her voice was hoarse. Her clothes were threadbare. But her pride. Her pride stood tall. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Clara." He didn't ask for a last name. He doubted she had one she was eager to share. "Do you have somewhere to go?" he added. Clara shook her head slowly. "Not tonight. Not any night." Her defiance stirred something unfamiliar in him. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She wasn't broken, just hardened by too many nights like this one. Elias should have walked away again. Instead, he said, "How would you like a warm meal, a safe place to sleep, and $75,000? She stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "There's a condition," he added. "I need a wife. For 3 months. On paper. You'd move into my home, attend a few events. No strings. No touching. After that, we part ways. You keep the money." Clara's expression darkened. "You want to buy my pregnancy?" "No," he said, almost offended. "This has nothing to do with your child. I just need to be married to satisfy a clause in a will. You just happen to fit the image." She stared at him. Then, softly, she whispered, "What's the catch?" "There isn't one. You'd be safe. You'd have food, clothes, shelter. The moment the contract ends, you walk away richer and with a fresh start for your baby." He expected her to say no. But Clara stood slowly, wincing slightly, and held out her hand. "When do we start?" 2 days later, Clara was in a designer gown, standing beside Elias in a private courthouse ceremony officiated by a friend on his payroll. No guests. No vows. Just signatures, exchanged glances, and an awkward photo that would later be leaked to tabloids. She moved into his penthouse, but insisted on staying in the guest room. Elias respected that. He also noticed the way she never asked for anything. Not when his housekeeper offered her a wardrobe filled with designer maternity wear. Not when his driver tried to help her into the car. She was proud and fiercely independent. But there were cracks. Sometimes, she touched her belly and whispered things when she thought no one was listening. Other times, he caught her standing in the hallway outside the baby's future room, staring in like it belonged to someone else. And Elias, the man who once couldn't care less about anyone's life beyond quarterly earnings, found himself asking questions. He learned that Clara had once been in nursing school. That her parents had died in a car crash when she was 19. That she'd taken a job as a waitress, fallen in love with a man who promised her the world and then vanished the moment she got pregnant. He also learned she refused to be a victim. Every insult, every hardship, every door slammed in her face she wore like armor. But what broke him was the night she fell asleep on the couch, hand resting on her belly, murmuring to her unborn child. "You're going to be okay. Mama won't let anyone hurt you." Elias watched her from the hallway, something tight in his chest. He didn't know when she had started to matter. He only knew she did. Weeks passed. Their fake marriage played out in tabloids like a fairy tale. Wealthy marries mysterious woman. The media speculated about her background, romanticized her pregnancy, and declared them an unlikely power couple. Elias didn't correct the narrative. He was too busy living in it. The turning point came one afternoon at a charity gala. Clara, now glowing in her 7th month, stood beside him in a flowing white dress, answering questions with poise. But when someone asked, "And how does it feel to be carrying Elias Hart's firstborn?" everything froze. She smiled faintly. "I'm not." The reporter blinked. "You're not pregnant." "I am," she said, "but the baby isn't his." The room went silent. All eyes turned to Elias. A dozen crisis PR scenarios flashed in his mind, but none of them mattered. He took her hand and said, "That child is under my protection. As long as I live." Later that night, as the city sparkled outside his windows, Clara confronted him. "You didn't have to say that." "I wanted to." "You're not the father." "No," he said quietly, "but I could be the one who shows her what a real father looks like." Clara stared at him, stunned. "I know this started as a contract," he continued, stepping closer, "but I've come to care about you." "About her?" "I can't explain it, but you've changed me, Clara." Tears shimmered in her eyes. "Don't say it unless you mean it." "I do. I've spent my life building something that meant nothing until I met you." And just like that, their marriage of convenience began to feel a lot like fate. But just as happiness bloomed, a shadow from Clara's past returned. The real father of her unborn child, thought to have disappeared, suddenly came back into the picture. And he wasn't here for redemption. He was here for revenge. Clara never expected to see Jason again. When she walked into Elias's penthouse that night and saw Jason standing there dry, smug, and untouched by the suffering he had left her, in her heart nearly stopped. "Hello, Clara," he said with a grin, his eyes roaming over her very pregnant figure. "Long time." Elias stepped between them in a flash, shielding Clara instinctively. "Who are you?" "I'm the man who put that baby in her," Jason said, voice laced with smug triumph. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through steel. Elias didn't flinch. "And I'm the man who kept her alive while you were God knows where." Clara's hands trembled at her sides. "Why are you here, Jason?" He shrugged. "Because I saw the headlines. Billionaire marries pregnant mystery woman. And I figured, hey, maybe I should come collect what's mine." Elias's jaw clenched. "She and the child are not yours. You gave that up when you left." Jason's expression darkened. "Legally, I'm still the father. And if she's married to you now, that makes things complicated. But I'm willing to play nice for a price." Clara stepped forward, her voice shaking but firm. "You're not getting a cent. You left me on the street, Jason. I begged you to stay, and you ran. Now you want to play father for a paycheck." Jason turned to her with a cold smile. "I know who you are now, Clara. You're not just some waitress anymore. You're Elias Hart's wife. That makes you valuable." "You're disgusting," she whispered. Elias reached for his phone. "Get out, or I'll have security throw you out." Jason didn't blink. "I'm filing for paternal rights. Let the courts decide." And with that, he left. The following weeks were chaos. Jason's lawyers filed paperwork. The media caught wind of the drama. Headlines blared, "Biological father wants custody of billionaire's stepchild." Clara was devastated, and Elias was furious but not powerless. He hired the best attorneys. Quietly funded a background investigation. And in the meantime, stayed by Clara's side through every ultrasound, every sleepless night, every courtroom meeting. What they uncovered was damning. Jason had a record: past fraud, assault charges, substance abuse. He had been arrested twice during Clara's pregnancy for bar fights and unpaid debts. More importantly, he had no income, no stable housing, and zero interest in being a father until money entered the equation. Clara sat across from Elias one night, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. "Why are you still doing this?" she asked softly. "You fulfilled the contract. You don't owe me anything." Elias looked at her as if she'd lost her mind. "I'm not here because of a contract, Clara. I'm here because I love you. I love that child. I want all of this. The chaos. The late night cravings. The heartbreak. You." Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't think people like you could love people like me." Elias reached across the table, his thumb wiping away a tear. "Then let me prove you wrong." The day of the custody hearing, Clara stood in court, her back straight, her belly full, her heart pounding. Jason sat with his sleazy lawyer, smirking like a man who thought he'd already won. But then Elias's legal team stepped forward and began presenting evidence. Photos. Police records. Testimonies. And finally something Clara hadn't even known existed. A video. Recorded by Jason, drunk, boasting to a friend about how he planned to squeeze the billionaire dry using Clara's pregnancy. It was over in minutes. The judge dismissed Jason's petition. "You are unfit to have any custodial rights," she ruled. "You have demonstrated no interest in the well-being of the child until financial gain became a possibility." Jason stormed out of the courtroom in silence. He never came back. Weeks later, Clara gave birth to a healthy baby girl with a full head of dark curls and the brightest hazel eyes Elias had ever seen. He held her like she was made of stars. They named her Lila. At the hospital, as Clara rested with Lila swaddled on her chest, Elias sat beside them and whispered, "Will you marry me again?" She blinked in disbelief. He grinned. "For real this time. No contracts. No deals. Just me, you, and the little girl who made me believe in something more." Clara laughed through tears. "Yes. 1,000 times, yes." Their wedding was small. Just friends, a garden, and a baby who cried through most of the ceremony. Clara wore a simple lace dress. Elias couldn't take his eyes off her. The tabloids didn't call it a fairy tale. They called it a scandal-turned-miracle. But for Elias and Clara, it was something more. It was redemption. It was fate. It was love, born not from perfection, but from pain and built to last.